From Nutrien Ag Solutions, I'm Senior Meteorologist Andrew Pritchard with your Canadian Prairie weather story for Monday, January 30th, 2023. It's going to be a cold and dry week, I'll tell you right up front. We've got some of that colder air, those pink colors finally making their way into portions of the prairie. This cold air is going to linger for probably the next 4 or 5 days. Another reinforcing shot comes mid to late week, but then we start to moderate over the weekend into early next week. Looking at the radar here Monday morning, just some very light snow falling in parts of southern Alberta, Calgary, down toward Medicine Hat, maybe some very light snow. Some of that making its way into southwestern portions of Saskatchewan as well. Here's a look at the satellite picture. A little glitch there at the very beginning, some cool colors, but you see the flow of the jet stream doing something like this, coming over the top of a ridge out across the Pacific, around the base of a trough, and then racing in across parts of the southern U.S. So we're allowing a lot of that colder air to spill into the region, but the active corridor where the heavier precipitation is located here across parts of the south central United States. We'll move this ahead then, looking at the forecast as we head through the next couple of days. We'll take it through midday Thursday. See the light snow hanging on here across portions of Alberta into southwestern and southern Saskatchewan. Not that much in the way of accumulation, except for the Grand Prairie toward Edmonton area. That's where you could see anywhere from maybe 5 to 10 inches of snow accumulating over the next 3.5 days. You follow your Highway 16 corridor here, and we're talking about maybe some flurries, some light coating. A light accumulation is what I meant to say. They're a light coating, maybe upwards of an inch in some of these areas. But generally speaking, NAM on the left, European model on the right, both through midday Thursday talking about very light snow. And then as we add in the next 10 days total, so taking it all the way through February 8th, this is from the European model. Again, Grand Prairie, Edmonton, you folks are the ones who will actually see some meaningful accumulation as you follow Highway 16 off to the south and to the east. Areas north of there, maybe 5 to 10 inches of snow. South of that, though, across the primary prairie region, we're talking about, again, a light coating, opportunities for flurries, but not much in the way of meaningful moisture, except for areas north of Highway 16 over the next 7 to 10 days. The reason for that, as we look at the jet stream, we'll do this in a couple of different ways, 3 really. We'll look at the flow first. So this is the jet stream winds animated over the next 10 days from the European model. And I'm going to draw in a couple corridors where you see those faster jet stream winds. First one here across the prairie, coming in from northwest to southeast around this area of low pressure over the Hudson Bay. And the next corridor here where we continue to see storm systems coming in on the subtropical jet across the Pacific, diving in across the southwest, and then kind of racing across the southern and eastern third of the United States. As we look at jet stream heights, so this is 500 millibar heights, days 0 through 5 on the left, and then here is days 5 through 10. So taking it all the way through February 8th with these two maps combined, and what you see on the left, really pronounced split flow. The flow of the jet stream comes in over the top of this ridge, around the base of this trough here over the Hudson Bay, and then we've got flow coming in around the base of this trough and then racing in across the southwestern U.S. So here, where we get this split, we just don't get much in the way of meaningful storm systems and Pacific moisture making its way in. And that doesn't change much as we go into days 5 through 10. And then if I bring up days 10 to 15, really pretty similar. Maybe starting to consolidate some of the flow here. Coming in over the top of that ridge, maybe bringing in more in the way of organized clipper systems. But we still got this trough across the southwest that's going to focus a lot of the jet stream energy here across portions of the southern and eastern United States. And then the final way we'll look at this is jet stream winds, looking at this equatorial view, taking it all the way through the second week of February. Really, we're looking for areas of stronger jet stream winds. That's where the interesting weather will be, the active weather, storm systems, cloud cover, precipitation. See this very strong Pacific jet streak here, not extended all the way to the Pacific coast like it was back in, 3-4 weeks. 3-4 weeks ago, when we had all of the moisture being deposited across the western coast of the United States. The jet has sort of retracted, and that's where now we see that split flow. And you see the very strong flow across the southern and eastern United States. And that is why this area, at least through the first half of February, is going to be the most active across North America in terms of organized storm systems and precipitation. We'll animate 24-hour precipitation through the next 2 weeks from the European ensemble, and you can see that here. The most active corridor right here across the southern and eastern U.S. As you look at the prairie, we're really seeing that northwest flow, and it's not until we get really to the weekend and early next week that we even see more in the way of those clipper systems bringing more widespread light snow. It's really going to be a quiet next 5 days until we get to the weekend, cold and quiet. 2 ways of looking at precipitation over the next 15 days. From the European ensemble model. On the left, the probability of picking up more than half an inch of precipitation over the next 2 weeks. Look for the darker shading colors. Of course, that's going to be here across the southern and eastern U.S., and then we'll look for some snow here as Pacific moisture is deposited across portions of British Columbia. But where you see that we're not expecting that greater than half an inch of precipitation right here across portions of the interior west, the northern high plains, and the Canadian Prairie. And then on the right side, the probability of picking up the probability over the next 2 weeks of picking up less than 1/10 of an inch. So where is it going to be very dry over the next 2 weeks? Southern portions of the prairie, and then into the northern and central high plains across the U.S. So really, it's going to be a dry go of it over the next week for much of the prairie and then much of the northern plains of the U.S. One last way to look at this, the probability of picking up more than 3 inches of snow over the next 2 weeks. It's going to be greatest well north of Highway 16, where we see more in the way of those clipper systems riding up and over the top of the ridge, pivoting around the base of the trough that we have here across portions of the Hudson Bay. Otherwise, it's looking like a pretty quiet week across much of the prairie. Again, Grand Prairie, Edmonton, you're picking up that 5, 10, maybe 15 inches of snow over the next 2 weeks. Pretty much everybody else, you got a chance for some, frequent flurries. Not much in the way of consequential accumulation. I guess the good news here is if we're going to have cold, we would want to have snow. So if we're going to have cold without the snow, let's get the cold out of here. What I'm trying to say in so many words is that we expect to see those temperatures begin to moderate over the weekend into early next week. It's going to be really cold this week, but if we just kind of look at the next 10 days here in Calgary, bitterly cold over the next 4 days, but by the time we get to the weekend, those highs are back above freezing, getting back to close to freezing here in Edmonton. Regina, a bit colder here, but still same look. Cold next 4 to 5 days, a bit more mild as we get into the weekend of next week. Saskatoon, and then we'll finish here in Winnipeg. Those highs, again, minus 20 for much of this work week. We'll get back to around minus 10, minus 12 as we get to the weekend and early next week.